Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ajua. It's yet another one of my similar but better series where I compare two or more fragrances that are reported to smell identical and let you know which of them, in my opinion, is a better alternative. In the past, I've compared Garam. I've given it a full detailed review. I've also given Nafaya Shak from Kadlaj a review and compared the two. But I did them whilst I had never tried Basiami. Thankfully, my friend from Next Sense sent me a sample of Basiami. So I have my thoughts about the original one, and then I'm going to compare it to the two to find if they are indeed similar. They are not. Not the slightest, the original one as compared to even Garam and then Nafaya Shag. I think Nafayas is the furthest from Basiami. Maybe Garam, I find the similarities here and there, but on the whole, I wouldn't necessarily consider either of them as an accurate dupe, although very beautiful fragrances. I love these two fragrances. So Garam is more on the vanilla floral, nuances, whereas when it comes to Nafayas, it's more about a heavy floral, musky, slightly creamy, but not as heavy in the vanilla as I find in this one. When it comes to the original one, I have my decant here, thanks to Meg Saint, and I was a little underwhelmed, honestly, when I received it. I was expecting maybe a lot. It's a very beautiful, pretty scent. I would love to own a bottle of Basiami, but I was a little underwhelmed with all the, hype and everything. It's very pretty and soft, but it doesn't smell like the Garam and Nafaya Shak to my nose. It doesn't smell like that. Maybe same family, not even flankers to me. Seriously, it's more, there's something quite bright and citrus about this, although the notes for this one includes, I think, gardenia, amber, and vanilla. I think those are the notes for it, but I find it a little more uplifting. It's more on that uplifting, a bit citrusy, orangey sort of feel to it that I don't find in Garam and then Nafaya Shak. I don't find, in those two fragrances. Not really the most identical. If they are supposed to be dupes, I don't think any of these two, Nafayas and then Garam, captured the whole essence of Basiami. Now that I'm smelling the original one, I was a little underwhelmed with this particular fragrance. I felt like it's just a very soft, light, airy, citrusy, bright, vanilla, and floral. I just felt I was expecting probably a little more from this. It's so pretty, so gentle, much more lighter and airy and breathable than these two other supposed dupes. These are quite out there, but the original one feels a lot more lighter. I like both of them, or the three of them. I feel like you can own Basiami and own either of these two. You can own Basiami and own either of these two because although a little reminiscent of the original one, I don't find them the most similar at all. That citrusy feel I find in this one, and this one feels slightly more sweeter, especially at a dry down. There's something a little, the original one, something a little more sweeter that I get, aside the florals and the ambery, nuance. It's beautiful, but so soft, just a little too soft for my liking. Whereas in the case of Nafayas and Garam, I get a little more, I get a little more to them, but they are not nearly as identical as Basiami to my nose. I think you can own Basiami in any of these two, although to my nose, Nafayas is more of a floral, musky, powdery. There's a creaminess to Nafayas that I find, but it's not a vanilla creamy nuance. Whereas in the case of Garam, I get a very beautiful vanilla, ambery, floral, a bit of a sugary or sweetness. But I think of the three, Garam is the most vanillic. The Nafayas is the most floral, and then the original one is a blend of the two, floral, vanilla, ambery sort of feel, and a little more sweetness. I think the original one has a little more going on when it comes to something sweet and a little more uplifting. With that, what I perceive, there's nothing like a citrus note, but I perceive something like a citrus, most likely an orangey sort of feel. That is exactly what I smell in Basiami. So to me, It's got a similar dry down when it comes to the florals. I think that is what they have in common, but the other two supposed dupes are more intense. There's a lot more going on in those ones, although you find the quality in the original one is there, but it's so light and airy and pretty. It can be underwhelming if you have had, you've heard a lot of incredible things, and it could be a little underwhelming. But once it begins to develop, it sort of develops. It's not linear. But I think these other two are quite linear. They stay true to what they give you from the beginning, whereas this one sort of develops, and then at the dried now you get the florals and a bit of more of a sweetness, but it starts off bright with the citrus that I perceive. So to me, I love them both. I'm still going to keep them, of course, but I feel they are not, both of these fragrances are not really giving me, maybe at most 50-60%. At most 50-60% is what they are giving me, and that is going to be my comparison. So you can own both. You can't own the original one and any of the other two supposed dupes, and that is going to be my take on these two and the original one. Dulzura is a new release from Paris Corner, and this smells quite identical to something to me, but I would like to give it a bit of review before I compare it to something that I feel is identical, very identical. So for the notes for this includes buttermilk, there's black pepper, in the middle there's vanilla, there's cake, there's whipped cream, and then at the base there's amber and then musk. And of course, I get that cake accord. It's more of a velvet cake, very resonant and thick. This is a very new bottle, but it's very potent. It's not super big smooth, but you smell it as compared to the one I'm going to compare it to. It is a very beautiful, pretty vanilla cake scent forward. That is what I would describe it as. Very beautiful, maybe feminine leaning in my opinion. I love the bottle. It's so pretty, a bit of an ombre effect with the bottle and then the gold here. I like the shade of gold in this particular instance. It's so beautiful. This reminded me of Empire Victor, the new formulation. As soon as I sprayed it, it didn't necessarily remind me immediately. It's more on a resonance, thicker, much more cakey, syrupy sort of, feel. But as it gets to the middle and the dry down, it gives me Empire Victor, the new formulation. That is what it gives me, almost like 95%. The only thing missing is the fact that the note structure for this one, there is nothing like lemon, but there is lemon. This is the lemon sort of feel, and has been compared to Cirque du Soleil, and that is a fragrance I have not put my nose on, but I've heard people comparing that Cirque du Soleil to Empire Victor, the new formulation, and to smell this one, which is reportedly a dupe of that, and picking up the similarities, I would like to believe, it is quite identical to the original one. It is reported to guys identical too. This is me trying to find the minutest, differences between the two. The openings are quite different, but the dry down are very identical. At the opening, this one differs in the sense that it gives you that realistic red velvet cake, vibe, like with some syrup. It gives you a syrupy, much more thicker vibe. Whereas in Empire Victor, it's much more lighter and fluffier. And I don't get anything like red velvet in the case of Empire Victor, but this one gives me red velvet sort of feel with a hint of a berry-ish, vibe. That is the most significant difference I find at the beginning. The dry down is so identical, almost negligible. If you are one who complain about the longevity for Empire Victor, I think you will find that longevity you're looking for in Dulzura from Paris Corner. They smell identical. If you wait for 5 minutes, getting to the middle and then the dry down, you begin to see Empire Victor through and through in this one. They are both beautiful. I feel like although they are identical, I don't see any different. I don't see any thing wrong owning both. There's something about the two that is a little different. That red velvet sort of accord is what I think differentiates these two. Although dry now is very similar, but I guess also feel you can own both. You can layer them together. But if you are looking for a much more resonant, less fluffy sort of Empire Victor, the new formulation, you might want to go with this Paris Corner new, fragrance. I'm finding it difficult to pronounce the name, but it's a very beautiful, very identical smell. You're not missing much though. You're not missing much though if you have the new formulation for Empire Victor. You're missing the longevity, which you will find in this. Projection wise, a little more projecting than Empire Victor, a little more stronger, but it's not super beast mode. If you spray a lot, it's going to, overpower a lot of other fragrances. It's a very beautiful scent. You don't need both, but you still need both. I don't know, but you don't need both, especially the dry down. If you are one who is trying to be cutthroat on your redundant, fragrances, you might want to avoid this one. But if you are one who loves Empire Victor but finds the performance of this one to be poor, as has been reported by a lot of people, you might want to go with this one because you're getting the performance in this one, you're getting the longevity and everything. But scent wise, the beginning is where you get the difference. The dry down is so identical to the extent that you don't necessarily need both. And that is going to be my review for Dulzura and then Empire Victor. They are very identical, scent wise. I cannot really say I know the scent for Cirque du Soleil that has been compared to this, or which this is reported to be a dupe of. But if it is anything to go by what I have read and have seen, and I think we already have smelt that Cirque du Soleil scent in the form of Empire Victor, because these two are very identical, and that is going to be my comparison for these two. And my last set of fragrances are going to be comparison of these three. Queen of Silk by Creed. I'm going to compare it to Ariba from Rips. Ariba, I have a decant here. I think I prefer this one over Avant Silk. I'm not giving this one the best of reviews just because it doesn't really sit well with me for the most part. But when it comes to Riff's Ariba, I think upon initial spray, it smells very beautiful to me. It's still quite identical, but I feel like when it comes to Avant Silk, I'm getting more of the saffron. Queen of Silk is more about the saffron wood, the floral tuberose. That is the vibe for Queen of Silk. A sort of Middle Eastern leaning sort of, fragrance, but also very mass appealing in a way. It gives you that. But when it comes to Avant Silk, I'm getting more of that saffron. And I think the saffron is what I don't like in this one. I feel it wasn't done to the best in this Avant Silk. In the case of Ariba from Rips, I feel it is a little more sweeter. There's something a little more sweeter and much more wearable about this one. I don't get that harsh saffron I get in Avant Silk. I don't get it. It gives me a smoother version of Avant Silk, a little more sweeter version of Avant Silk. And then Avant Silk by itself is the woodiest. I would say it gives me more of the woods. I get more of the woods. Whereas in not Queen of Silk, Avant Silk, I'm getting more of the saffron. And then in Ariba, I'm getting more of a sweetened up, less woody sort of vibe. In my opinion, I like the Ariba, not in my opinion, but preference wise, I enjoy Ariba over Avant Silk. I didn't get anything negative to associate with, as in the case of Avant Silk. Avant Silk now is doing so much better. I can bear it, I can wear it, but it's still not my favorite. I feel like it is not the best as compared to Ariba, for example. I like how a little more wearable Ariba is, a little more sweeter, a little less saffrony, a little less woody. This one is quite woody with that bit of funk, with a lot of agarwood. So that is going to be my preference, Ariba. I know there are several other dupes of Queen of Silk, but these are the two that I am previewed to. And when I compare the two, I think from the jump start, I'm enjoying Ariba a lot more. It feels a lot more smoother, a lot more smoother, a lot more seamless. They are quite both, identical to Queen of Silk, but I think Ariba is the better alternative. This one needs to go through a lot of, sitting or aging. That's how I feel when it comes to Queen of Avant Silk. I feel like it needs to go through lots of months of sitting. I know people have said they loved it from day one. I was trying to get into the groove of it, but after a while, I felt like I needed to let it sit for a while. Now it's doing a lot more better, but I feel Ariba is the better alternative of the two. And these are going to be my comparison for the day. I didn't do a lot of fragrances today because I wanted to give more in-depth, review yeah, give you more details about them. And that is going to be it for the day. And I hope this video found you also. Please do not forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I hope to see you in my next one. Take care. Bye bye.